So my name's Matt. I want to help you become better developers and build better apps. That's not me picking on any of you individually, that's just general my aim in life. One of the things I do to do that is I contribute to a project called Windows Template Studio. Have any of you heard of that? Whoa, a few rules, good. What it is, it's a scaffolding project, a scaffolding solution when you're building UWP apps. So instead of just file new and get an empty project, you can do loads of stuff automatically. I might show you a bit of that later. But that just gets you started. And I was thinking, well, once you've got started with your app, what can we do to help developers further? You know, Visual Studio is great, XAML's great, but the tooling has opportunities for improvement, I would say. And like all the best talks, I'm going to start with a demo. So I'm going to show you an app. This is it at the moment. It's running in WebAssembly just because, you know, that's what the cool kids do. It's a really simple app. It has 2 pages, and they're currently both blank. Oh, that's a shame. Now I've got this app, and I want to do things with it. This one. So it's a standard project. You see the 5 different projects in the solution. I've added a couple of things. I've added a resource file, we'll get to that later. I've added some utilities, because they'll be useful. So there's a product repository just to give me some fake products. So when we run the app with actual products in it, that'll be useful. I've got a relay command, so I've got an iCommand implementation. I've got some ViewModels. I've got a base ViewModel, which takes care of the iNote property change stuff. And I've got ViewModels for each of my pages. So this is my login page. It just says login. On my products page, you saw that, it just said products, but I've got some view models. Here's my login view model. Got it up here. It's got 3 properties. It's got a username property, it's got a password property, and it's got a command. Now, I have my view model, which is quite common. I think a lot of you will have, be developing apps, and you'll have the view model before you write the view. Your view model might come from some data. It might be from a database. It might be from a web service. But some of that's coming first. It's very rare in my experience that as a developer, you write all the XAML, all the UI first, and then create the view model. If that's not your experience, congratulations. But that's how I see it. So I called this thing the Rapid XAML Toolkit. And I want to write the XAML to connect my view and my view model. And you could probably write that really quickly. But could you write it this quickly? You're allowed to clap. You're allowed to say, no, wow, that's amazing. Okay. Okay. So what I did, I dragged the view model onto the view, and it looked at the class. It said, oh, what type of project should you be in? Oh, you're in a shared project. That's tricky. Let's try and work out what reference is this project, and then if it's a UWP, if it's a WPF, or if it's a XAML Forms type project, and it went, oh, you're that's UWP, not XAML Forms, I will give you some UWP-specific XAML. And it's been a bit clever. So here you can see I've got a text box for my username, and it's spat out the username, it's reformatted it, it's bound the value. My password became a password box because, well, that's more likely to be what you want. My button is wired up to my command. That's useful because, you know, why would you not want to do it that way? So that was a simple, nice simple thing to get started. But our products view model, it's over here. Oh, I haven't reset properly. Shh, don't look. Okay. So my products view model, it just has a collection of products. Can you guess where I'm going with this? So if we go back to my products page, somewhere it exists, and if I drag that products view model onto it, I've got a stack panel, and in my stack panel, it's giving me a list view, and the data template is all bound to the properties of the product which were in the collection. That's really useful. I didn't know where to find the data type, so I can just, Visual Studio knows how to do that, so I'm not going to do it for it. Hooray, we don't need this text at the top anymore, but we now have a list box that fills the whole screen. That's brilliant. That's much quicker than writing it yourself, isn't it? You didn't clap the second time, you see, I'm fishing there. Let's take it out of that stack panel, but I'll need that stack panel. Yeah, Billy said people aren't writing enough code in their demos today, so let's do stuff about that. Now let's pretend that you haven't seen that thing earlier. And having a list is great, but I want to have like a master detail thing. So I've got a list at the top, details of the selected item at the bottom, and when you change what you selected, it updates the thing at the bottom. So I need, so I need to add my property for that. So I'll just, I'm not used to typing at an angle. I'll add a property. It's going to be of type product. yes, and we'll call it my selected product, because that's what I rehearsed. That's great. Oh no, I've forgotten that I need to do the iNotify change malarkey, and I haven't got anything clever to do it for me. So I just go Control Dot, because that's how you get Visual Studio to do anything useful. Oh, and it's looked that this property is in a class, and the base class implements iNotify property changed, and has a property called a method called onPropertyChanged, and it has one called setProperty, and I want it to call that. So brilliant. So if you've got templates for doing your properties all properly first, that's great. But if you haven't, we can fix that up. Now, I've already got my UI. Now let's go back to my UI. So I've got my my list, and let's pretend we've customized this in some way. So we're going to make the name bold. We could do other things, but okay. So now I don't want to just drag the view model back onto my view, because I'd end up with two lists, or I'd delete it and recreate it, and I'd lose all the work I've done. So instead of that, why don't we come back to our view model? We'll just click on this selected product, and we'll come to this menu item, Rapid XAML, and I'm going to, oh, well, because toolboxes are bad, apparently, I could copy it to the toolbox. I'm just going to copy it to the clipboard. Can you guess what's going to happen when I come in here? And Control V, you can't see it. It's done a load of stuff. It's turned that into XAML in the same way when I was dragging it. And so you can see a bunch of things. So I've got a text box for the two string properties. There were string properties on the product. And there was a unit price, which was a double, which is turned into a slider so I can adjust the price. That's brilliant. It's done things like, so here it's got minimum, their default, but if I'd attributed the property with like a max length property, it would have worked that out and adjusted that properly, because it's clever. So now I've got my stack panel with my individual things, and I've got my list view above it. But if I ran this now, they just appear on top of each other in the grid. So I'm in a grid. What I really want is for the stack panel with all the editable properties to be at the bottom. Second one, which is row 1. That's good, isn't it? Now some green squiggles have appeared. What I did is I saved the file, and some green squiggles have appeared. Well, this is Visual Studio. If you want to know what a green squiggle does, you can move the cursor over it, or you can just Control Dot, and it will say, add the missing row definitions. You're using row definitions, but you haven't defined them. Ooh, let's hit Enter and see what happens. Oh, look, it's added row definitions. It knew I needed 2, because I got one of index 1 and an implied index 0, so it's created 2 row definitions. That's really useful. Isn't that much easier than defining it yourself? And just to prove a point, so if I'd said this was row 5, and I tried to add them, it would put loads in. Hooray! It made 6. Let's just undo, because that's a thing, isn't it? So I've got my row at the top and a thing at the bottom. So my list view, I want to bind the selected item, don't I? Oh. SE, selected item. And I'm going to bind this, because that's what the cookies do to it. It was a ViewModel dot. Ugh. Going on here. Selected products. Is that good? No, it's not. And it's given me a green squiggle to tell me it's not. Because I'm binding a selected item, it's really, 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 really likely that I want that to be a 2-way binding. But the default for a selected item is 1-way. So I just come and say, oh, what's that green squiggle about? Oh, set the selected binding to 2-way. Guess what's going to happen here? Hooray! Oh, look, we've got some other green squiggles. Oh, there's a lot of them. I don't want to mouse over all of them. Well, of course, they're errors and they're warnings, so they show up, they show up here. Let's clear everything and just do the interesting things. Oh, look, there's these RXT ones, stands for Rapid XAML Toolkit, which tell me that, you can't read it. But some of them say things like, this text block's got hard-coded text. Well, that's a bad thing, because you obviously want to localize all your applications, and obviously in Canada you probably have to do like French and English at least. So I could come in here and I could say, move hard-coded string to resource file. But there's loads of them, I don't want to do that. So instead what I can do is just click anywhere else on the file, come to my Rapid XAML menu and move all the hard-coded strings to a resource file. Hopefully that's descriptive enough that you know what's going to happen. When I come back to this file and say, oh look, those properties have all gone away and I've got these IDs, because that's how UWP does localization. And I've got this resource file, which it found all by itself. And if there'd been ones for different languages, it would have looked and seen what the default language is for the project, and then used that one. And it's created some entries for my new things. I had the application ones already. These are all new. Hooray! Oh, can't even find the thing. Where's it gone? So that's all good. It's complaining that I haven't got something. Input scopes. Yeah, have input scopes on your text boxes, because that's been good for mobile devices. Oh, goes on mobile devices. That's probably a good thing. It's just put a default one in, but if it was sensible, it could do something else. But my designer's a bit messed up now. I'm just going to change my row definition, so this one is auto, so it goes to the bottom and the list view takes up all the text, all the space. But before I could see the headers on here, and now I can't see them, so that's not as good, is it? Oh, what a shame. If this was XAML Forms, I could come here and go. I could do that, and what's this? Is like the reference or something. But it's not XAML Forms, is it? Oh, that's a shame. It turns out I worked out enough about how the designer works. So if you do that instead, it's the header. And sometimes I need to rebuild for it to take effect. Drum roll, drum roll. So this isn't part of the toolkit, this is something else. I've sneakily already installed a separate NuGet reference called the UWP design time data. And when the build finishes, it's churning away at the bottom, we'll see the designer refresh. Because hot reload's great, but sometimes you need to see things, what things look like in the designer. Come on, come on. Oh, my battery's low, it's gone into slow mode. Can you guess what's going to happen? Oh, because it's building, I can't even run anything. Urgh. Come on, come on. Come on. Oh, so while it's doing that, let's come up here and talk about how it worked out what I should take those properties and do with them and how to turn them into XAML. So up in options, there is a thing called profiles. And we have a whole load of different profiles by default. Someone's waving at me, I don't know what that means, probably running out of time. And these are what you get by default, and a profile tells you what, tells the toolkit what to do. And it says, so this is one, it says look at the type, look at the name, look if it's read-only, and then output some stuff. And it uses some templating and some custom DSL type stuff to, placeholder replace things, and it's generally really good. And you can use whatever you want. Look at it when there's time. Hopefully that builded. Did that build? Let's close that. Yes, it did. Look, you can see. Woo, it says reference now. I'll just run this to prove it works. Oh, writing things from scratch, isn't it exciting? This is the UWP one because it just starts quicker, on my machine at least. There's my login page, which did stuff. I didn't wire up the command to do anything. Here's my products. Here's a selected one. Oh, look, I can move the thing and the number changes here. Isn't that brilliant? Hooray! We've built an app really, really quickly. Now, it's not the final XAML, but it should be enough to get you started and moving really quickly. And because I'm running out of time, I'll quickly say that way back when at the beginning, ages ago, I mentioned Windows Template Studio, which is about creating UWP apps from scratch, improving that file in your experience. Now, wouldn't it be great if you could create a cross-platform app in the same way as Windows Template Studio does? So maybe you wanted to use Uno, because, well, I'm here. Maybe I wanted to put that nav view panel in the side. I want a settings thing, so put the settings button on. Let's put a grid on there with some stuff in it and a web view. Maybe some other things as well. There's not as much as Windows Template Studio has yet, but that's great. Now I'm just sort of smoke and mirrors this bit. It's going to be app 80, and when the solution appears here, I can open it. This is like you're the first people in the world, apart from me, to ever see this. Exciting, isn't it? And it's busy generating in the background. You know how Visual Studio takes ages when you do file new? If you do file new with loads of stuff, you do whatever. We'll run this on UWP as soon as it gets there, just to prove it works. Cross mostness of fingers. That's the other one. Oh, drum roll. So that whole file new experience, project templates are great, but hopefully you'll see this is a bit more useful, a bit faster. Restores completed. Oh, Visual Studio hadn't finished loading when I tried to run the project. But you'll see, look, here's my 5 different projects. You'll see there's a load of stuff in shared to make it useful and interesting. Some sample data, view models for all my views, including a base view model, and like the shell page, which has got the navigation view in it. So it's got some of the view stuff wired up. I think that's probably me out of time. So while that's going, let's have some questions. No? Okay.
You ready?
While you think about questions, I'm going to say, if you want to try this out, you now can. It is in the marketplace. Go in Visual Studio 2019, up to extensions, manage extensions, search Rapid XAML, you can install it. It looks like that, like that. Here's the app I just created, so I've got a data grid. Oh, and it's already put some data in to show that's wonderful. I've got my settings page down here, that's great. And I've got a web view, which is hopefully going to load some web content if I'm online. Hooray, it does. Oh, look, I wrote a book. The design type data stuff, that's a NuGet package. You can go and get that now. The template studio stuff, it may or may not be called XAML, cross-platform template studio. I need to have an awkward conversation on Monday about having done this probably. But if you would like to see it, go to aka.ms/WTS, that's the Windows Template Studio repository. There is an issue on there about support for Uno. Say something like, I really, really want this. Upvotes are normally great for open source, but really express your desire to see this by leaving a comment. That would be brilliant. Thank you.
Awesome.